to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this evening will be offered by the good delegate representing Washington County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Dear God, Allah, Yahweh, no matter what your belief, we come together in this moment, humbled by the responsibilities that we share. Despite our differences, may we find strength in one another, for as iron sharpens iron, so too we can sharpen each other through respect, dialogue, and collaboration. Guide us with wisdom and compassion, that may we work in harmony for the betterment of the state that we love. Help us set aside division and focus on the common good, championing the hopes and dreams for all who call Maryland home. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 17th, 2025.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 96, Senator Brooks, House Rules. Senate Bill 118, Senator Walt Stryker, House Rules. Senate Bill 428, the President, House Rules. Senate Bill 930, Senator Gao, House Rules. Senate Bill 979, Senator Gazzoni, House Rules. Order Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
Yea and nay. Consent calendar number 2. House bills passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 4.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of House Bill 4, be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Yea and nay. Consent calendar number 3. House bills passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 453.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of House Bill 453, be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Yea and nay. Consent calendar number 4. House bills passed in the Senate. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 943.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of House Bill 943, be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 36. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 81, Criminal Law, Interference with the Public Safety Answering Point, Penalties, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 207, Drunk and Drug Impaired Driving and Failure to Remain at the Scene, Revocation of Driver's License, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 360, Revenge Porn, Civil Action and Criminal Offense, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the new section in the Courts and Judicial Proceedings article and replaces it with the civil cause of action authorization within the criminal statute. Amendment number 3 strikes definitions and creates a new comprehensive definition of visual representation. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 391, Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission, review of report and recommendations, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next.
Senate Bill 421, Criminal Law, Destroying Funerary Objects and Cemetery Elements, Statute of Limitations and Prohibition.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next.
Senate Bill 621, Courtroom Security, Minimum Adequate Security, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Rules and Executive Nominations, report number 6. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 784, Annual Corrective Bill, favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 35. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1378, Child Sexual Abuse Claims Against the State, Time Limitation, favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill as introduced and, first, prospectively limits the liability for child sexual abuse claims under the Maryland Tort Claims Act and the Local Government Tort Claims Act and for private actions. Specifies that the limits on liability apply to one or more claims by a claimant against a defendant, prospectively limits counsel fees, adds a reporting requirement by the Maryland Judiciary, authorizes the Supreme Court of Maryland to adopt rules, and changes the effective date of the bill to June 1st. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I'd ask to special order this bill until the appropriate time at the first session tomorrow, Thursday. If members, upon reviewing the bill and the amendments, have amendments that they would like to make to the bill, please provide them to the committee as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Question for the House is the special order HB 1378. To the appropriate time tomorrow. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ayes have it. HB 1378 has been special ordered until to the appropriate time tomorrow. Report of the Rules Committee, report number 5. This report is a consent calendar. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1506, re-referred to Environment and Transportation.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of House Bill 1506, be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objection, all the bills are re-referred to the appropriate committees. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 members present, the House is still in session. Concurrence calendar number 5, the clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 123, Maryland Correctional Training Commission membership, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 123 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 123, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 315, Task Force to Study Fiduciary Adjudication in Maryland, amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question, he said refuse to concur? What do you- Okay. Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 315 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There will be 133 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 315, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 616, Criminal Law, Destroying Funerary Objects and Cemetery Elements, Statute of Limitations and Prohibition, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Despite the questionable sponsor, we move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 616 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 616, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill. Next calendar. I'm sorry.
You ran out of bills.
Did we do all that?
House Bill 333, Healthcare Ecosystem Stakeholder Cybersecurity Work Group, amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The committee moves to concur with the Senate amendments.
Okay. Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 333 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 333, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 664, Health Occupations License Direct Entry Midwives, Disciplinary Actions, amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker,
Yeah.
the server's down.
We'll take a break until the system comes back up. clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 664, Health Occupations License Direct Entry Midwives, Disciplinary Actions, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The committee moves to concur with the Senate's amendments.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? The ayes have it. House Bill 664 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 664, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 850, Work Group on the Creation of a Data Dashboard for Public Work Contracts and Apprentices Establishment, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The committee moves to concur with the Senate amendments.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 850 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 850, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker, it's down again.
Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 991, State Procurement Minority Business Enterprise Program, Extension and Reports, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The committee moves to concur with the Senate's amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 991 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 120 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 991, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 7, House bills amended in the Senate. Clerk will read the bill in the Senate amendment.
House Bill 25, Environment Reservoir Augmentation Permit Establishment, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendment.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 25 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 25, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 182, Motor Vehicles Speed Monitoring Systems Penalties, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 182 is on third reading and final passage.
Madam Speaker. May I ask the committee chair what the Senate amendments did that we just, what the bill is in its final posture before we
Yes,
vote?
he's standing up waiting for you to
Thank
tell
you.
him.
I appreciate it. Hello. Can you tell us
Shifts.
what the Senate amendments did? So the bill, how is it different than what we voted for or against perhaps a few weeks ago?
It shifts all the fine money to WMATA. Sorry.
Now wait a minute.
Sorry, I was
it's
thinking it was
no
April
longer
1st.
April Fool's Day,
Sorry.
so I'm not sure that I believe you. Although looking at you, I may believe you.
In all seriousness, it lowers the base fine for when you're going between 12 and 15 miles per hour over the speed limit from $50 back to $40, which is current law, and then sets up a work group for standards around school zone speed monitoring systems.
So one of at least the fees is a little bit reduced. The rest is the original bill stays the same?
Correct.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. No one else is getting up. House Bill 182 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 182, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 347, Real Property, Recordation, and Land Records Requirements. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 347 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, HB 347, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 349, Prince George's County Speed Monitoring Systems, Maryland Route 210. Amendment number 1.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 349 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 349, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 528, Baltimore County Vehicle Laws, Private Roadways in Residential Communities. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Okay. Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 528 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 528, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1152, Real Property, Residential Rental Property, Pet Policy Disclosure, Pet Policy Transparency Act. Amendment number 1.
Committee.
Thank you,
Chair.
Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 1152 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 110 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1152, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
From nay to yay on House Bill 25.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
House Bill 25, please change my vote to yay.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, HB 25 from nay to yay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 25 would like to be recorded in the green. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 25 to yay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 991 and House Bill 25 to yay.
Yes.
House Bill 1152 to green.
Okay. Looking for gold slips to come up, too. Anyone else? Okay. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 22. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1199, Physicians Licensing Internationally Trained Physicians.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1199, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading Senate bills, number 29. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 302, Maryland Small Business Innovation Research and Technology Transfer Incentive Program, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 302, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 313, Election Law, Post-Election Tabulation Audits, Risk Limiting Audits.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 313, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 378, State Library Agency Family Literacy Pilot Program, establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 378, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 502, Property Tax Credit for Law Enforcement Officer or Rescue Worker, expansion to Judicial Officer.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 502, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 516, Property Tax Daycare Centers, Child Care Homes, and Child Care Centers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 516, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 605, Digital Advertising Gross Revenues Tax Assessments, Appeals and Corrections.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 605, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 663, Earned Income Tax Credit, Notice of Eligibility Alteration.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 663, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker, I have a vote change. House Bill 1199 is supposed to be yes. Thank you.
Yes?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to be recorded in the green on 1199.
Okay. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senate Bill 516 to red.
Any vote change? Get your gold slips up. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 39. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 585, Criminal Law, Exception to Armed Trespass Prohibition, Retired Law Enforcement Officials. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
question for the floor leader.
Committee Chair?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What does this bill do?
So prior to the passage of Senate Bill 1 in 2023, retired police officers were allowed to possess a firearm in certain places. After the bill was passed, it was discovered that it had impacted their ability to wear and carry firearms. And so what we're doing with this legislation is we're returning the law to what it was prior to the passage of Senate Bill 1 in 2023.
Okay, so this bill allows a retirement law enforcement officer to come onto someone's property with a weapon, correct?
Correct. However, if the person that tells that person that they have to leave, they still have to leave the property.
Right, and so, but it does allow an individual, and that includes an individual's home.
It did, and that was what the law was in 2023 with SB 1. This seeks to correct the mistake that was made in Senate Bill 1.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Question for the floor leader.
Committee Chair?
Am I correct in understanding that a person who is not sworn currently as a law enforcement officer under this bill would have the right to enter my home with a firearm?
No.
Can you clarify for me?
They would not be able to enter your home with, first of all, no. They would not be able to do that. They would have to have permission to enter your home, have to have permission to have a firearm when they entered your home. If they were coming into your home in any kind of law enforcement capacity, they would need to have a warrant to be able to enter your home. It would not allow them to enter your home.
Can you help me understand the section on page 3 that allows for the individual to be able to, if they merely have a wear carry permit and that the weapon is concealed, they would be exempt? Or I'm trying to figure out why that individual who is not carrying a badge might be able to, have this exemption under this bill.
One moment, please. Okay, could you restate your question, please?
So on page 3, lines 16 to 22, we have an exception. Essentially, an individual who is a retired law enforcement officer. In the first section, you have where they have a badge and a credential. So in that instance, they are walking up to a person with a badge. In the second instance, it's merely that they have a permit and they qualify here.
Right, and this was consistent with what the law stated prior to 2020, to the passage of Senate Bill 1.
All right, would you be open to some more conversation outside of the floor?
I'm happy to speak with you afterwards, yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 37. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 400, Residential Child Care Programs, Transportation Companies, Regulation, Preventing Abduction in Youth Transport Act of 2025.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask to special order these bills. We need to get the bill files from the committee, and they have not yet arrived. So I'd ask to hold them until the end of the, I don't know how much is left, the end of the day. Or we can hold them until first thing on Thursday.
Yeah, we're just going to hold the calendar.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 members present, the House is still in session.
Oh.
Calendar of third reading Senate bills, number 32. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 187, drunk driving, commercial driver's licenses, disqualification from driving.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 187, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 197, Maryland Correctional Training Commission membership.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 197, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 432, Criminal Records, Expungement and Maryland Judiciary Case Search, Expungement Reform Act of 2025.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 432, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 566, Real Property Filing Fee for Residential Mortgage Foreclosure Increase.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 566, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 581, Civil Actions, Tortuous Injury to or Death of Pet, Compensatory Damages, Buddy's Law.
It's on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 581, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker, vote change.
Yes.
SB 432 to nay.
Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 33. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 125, Residential Real Property, Local Limits on Summoning Law Enforcement or Emergency Services.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 125, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 348, Criminal Law, Visual Surveillance with Prurient Intent, Modifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 348, is, I'm sorry. Having received the constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 356, Public Health, Repeal of Prohibition on Transfer of Human Immunodeficiency Virus, Carlton R. Smith Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 356, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 443, Trafficking Regulated Firearms, Felony Classification.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 443, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 28. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 267, Election Law, Petitions for the Formation of a New Political Party Process.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
I was calling on you. I had to finish what I had to read here.
Thank you. I
okay?
appreciate that, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. The amendment is 443923.
Amendment number 1.
Moves to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know this bill is on third reader. Wanted to have an opportunity to improve it a little bit today with an issue I think that's important today. Local, state, and federal elections have different requirements, and for our municipal elections we don't require some of the things that we require in other elections. So this amendment's really simple. It does two things. It requires that each municipality require voter registration for its elections, which we don't do now, and it changes the law so that in municipal elections we would require that what we do in federal and state elections is that we only allow citizens to vote. And I think this is a big part of American sovereignty. It's been told to us that advocates have advised us this shouldn't change because local residents should be able to advocate for local tax dollars, but I actually believe in 2025 the way government works is that there are strings attached up and down, and most frequently a lot of local projects are actually funded by both federal and state government. So I think this is really an issue of sovereignty, and I think that we should require for people to participate in our elections and elect our leaders that they be citizens of our country. So respectfully, I'd move the amendment.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you so much to the good delegate for coming to chat with me about his ideas and his concerns and this amendment. Colleagues, I do want to call attention to the topic of this bill. Senate Bill 267 is specifically making a very minor change to our deadline around filing a petition to form a new political party in Maryland. I believe that this amendment, which deals with municipal elections and making requirements around non-citizen voting, has absolutely nothing to do with the bill. So that's the first reason that I'm going to ask colleagues to resist the amendment, as it is not germane to the legislation that is before us. The second issue is that it deals with one that is of autonomy for our municipalities here in our state. Right now, by state policy, we allow our cities and our municipalities to determine the parameters around their own elections. And I think that's what some refer to as local control. And so I urge the body to continue the local control that our municipalities have by resisting this amendment. Finally, this is a bill that is in the Ways and Means Committee, sponsored by, I think, the good delegate, for a very similar bill. And since you brought this amendment, I will take another close look at that legislation. We do have a few more days left in session, and so I urge the body to resist this amendment. Thank you.
Any other further debate?
Madam
Yes.
Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let's seize the moment. Let's seize the day. I mean, we have just a few days left, and unfortunately, this issue hasn't been addressed. I think now would be a great time to do it, and I urge the body to vote green on this great amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate? Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker. Red.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Clerk will read next bill. Oh, are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is on. Huh? The bill is on third reading and final passage. Yep. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 267, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 305, Financial Institutions and Activities, Virtual Currency Kiosk, Registration and Regulation.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? The ayes have it. The amendment fails. Forget what I just said. I'm trying to rush and do something.
Yes.
Okay. Senate Bill 305 is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 305, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 456, Dental Services, Qualification for Maryland Dent Care Program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 456, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 695, Labor and Employment Uninsured Employers Fund Board Membership and Reserves.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 695, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 830, Workers' Compensation Claims Application Form, Authorization for Release of Information.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 830, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 846, business regulation, cellular phone carriers, authorized users.
It's on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate?
Madam
Yes.
Speaker, thank you so much. Could the floor leader rise and just tell me what this does exactly?
Yeah, it's a very simple bill that allows, that requires the cell phone carriers to allow the primary account holder to designate another user. So for example, if my spouse is the primary account holder, currently that person has to physically go there to authorize you or me to change, make any changes, right? So this bill simply allows the designation of another user to make any changes to, let's say, upgrade your phone to the next level or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
And
all it does.
It doesn't have any fiscal impact, really?
Nothing.
Okay.
Right. And there's no opposition either.
Okay, awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 846, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 963, abandoned and neglected cemeteries fund establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 963, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
That's right.
You have
Vote-
a vote change? Go ahead.
Yeah, vote change on SB 267 to red.
Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 37. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 400, residential child care programs, transportation companies, regulation, preventing abduction in Youth Transport Act of 2025. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 clarifies the language relating to restraints. Number 2 provides for an award of compensatory and certain statutory damages. Number 3 establishes a 10-year statute of limitation for filing an action under the bill. And number 4 provides that the bill is prospective only. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now, the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 444, public safety gun buyback programs, destruction of firearms. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments clarify that a law enforcement agency may conduct an investigation relating to a firearm surrendered at a gun buyback program, and clarify that the agency shall return a lost or stolen firearm to the lawful owner if certain conditions are met. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Yes.
Madam Speaker, I just had some questions on the bill.
Committee Chair.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just reading the bill here, what does the bill do now with the amendments?
So what the bill does is it sets guidelines mostly for the destruction of firearms. It requires a federal FFL, a federal firearms licensee, or a law enforcement agency operating a gun buyback program to destroy each firearm, including every component and part attached to the firearm, that is surrendered to the licensee or an agent at a gun buyback program. We added amendments that would say that they may investigate to see if the gun was used in a crime, and if they find the gun was lost or stolen, that it would then be provided back to the person from whom it was lost or stolen.
Okay, in many instances, I'm just thinking about if someone wanted to turn in a gun that they committed a crime with, it might be difficult to ascertain if that's been used in the commission of a crime and now all of a sudden that weapon's destroyed.
That's why we added an amendment to allow law enforcement to investigate as to whether it was used in a crime.
Okay, but there's no affidavit or any prompt the person turning it in. So in other words, if they go and commit a crime with the firearm and then they immediately turn it in, and then it's destroyed, how does anyone know that?
If it's turned into an FFL or to a law enforcement agency, they would have the ability to investigate as to whether it was used in a crime, and if, as such, they would not destroy it. Doesn't mean that it's automatically destroyed. They would do an investigation to see whether the firearm was used in a crime and then go from there.
Okay, thank you for answering those questions.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, sorry. Mr. Chairman, how would the FFL do an investigation?
Presumably, they would speak to the law enforcement agency in the jurisdiction where they were. And as I'm familiar with FFLs across the state, all of whom are law-abiding gun owners, I'm sure that they would want to work with local law enforcement to make sure that these weren't firearms that were used in crimes.
I agree with you that they're wonderful people that do a great service for the state. But if there is a gun buyback program where they're collecting firearms, would there be an investigation done on each firearm, and do we know how that would take place?
That's why we added the amendment to the bill to say that the law enforcement can do that, that they would be able to look at the gun and see whether it was involved in a potential crime. It depends on the law enforcement agency's ability to do that research and to have other evidence where they'd be able to determine whether that particular gun was involved with a crime or not.
Thank you. What I'm trying to understand is the way that it works is the FFL receives the firearm and enters it into a required book. Is it then their responsibility to reach out to law enforcement, or they just have to be available for law enforcement for any of their investigations?
I would believe that they would be available for any law enforcement investigation, yes.
Okay, so that's sort of the status quo.
Effectively, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Okay, yes.
Floor Leader.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon. Good to see you as always.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming out.
You too. You too. Absolutely. So as far as the person that's turning in the firearm, what kind of contact from law enforcement can that person expect?
Can the person who turned in, if they turned it in at a police station, I expect that they would be asked, "Who are you?" and asked for more information as to whether the gun belonged to them, whether it was licensed to them, or where the gun came from. But in many cases, with these gun buyback programs, it's kind of done in a way that says, you know, if you found a gun and you just want to get rid of it, we want you to bring it in here and we will dispose of it and go from there. And that was one of the concerns that the committee had and that many people have had as to, okay, well, to the gentleman delegate's point from a moment ago, you know, what happens if they go commit a crime with the firearm and then just run right to a gun buyback and go from there? That's why we added amendments to the bill consistent with what I believe the Senate is supportive of as well, that make sure that there are some backstops in place to enable law enforcement to do whatever investigation is necessary to look at the gun, see if it was used in a crime. If, again, they can determine whether, you know, whether the gun was fired or not. There's a lot of questions that would go into whether they would be able to determine whether it was used in a crime.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 655, Courts Artificial Intelligence Evidence Clinic Pilot Program Establishment. In favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The committee amendments make clarifying changes and provides that an agreement between the administrative office of the courts and a grantee may, rather than shall, include certain hold harmless clauses. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 38. Clerk will read the first.
House Bill 497, Residential Child Care Programs, Transportation Companies, Regulation, Preventing Abduction in Youth Transport Act of 2025. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 clarifies language relating to restraints, provides for an award of compensatory and certain statutory damages, establishes a 10-year statute of limitation for filing an action under the bill, and provides that the bill is prospective only. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 966, Courts Artificial Intelligence Evidence Clinic Pilot Program Establishment. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The committee amendments conform this bill to its cross-file Senate Bill 655, which we just passed a third reader about 200 seconds ago. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 members present, and the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, Senate bills number 25. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 40, Vehicle Laws, Towed, Removed, or Abandoned Vehicles, Electronic Notice to Owner.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 40, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 248, Department of Service and Civic Innovation, Maryland Corps Program Service Year Option Pathways, Revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 248, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 349, Medical Debt, Complaints for Money Judgment, and Real Property Liens.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 349, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 547, Commission to Study Health Insurance Pooling Establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 547, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 587, State Government Maryland Reparations Commission.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk 313224/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're about to engage in some conversation, some debate about a subject that I think is sensitive and delicate, not delegate. And I hope that everyone in the chamber listens and responds and speaks, if they choose to, in a very respectful and meaningful way. Because as I look around the chamber and see the faces of people who I've come to know as friends and I come to know as colleagues, and I understand the significance of this issue to them and to their background and to what they feel is necessary in some cases for them to participate in the great tapestry that is America, because we all came here and our ancestors came here in different ways and at different times. And it's challenging to fit that together. I will tell you that slavery is an indelible stain upon our history. It does not and it cannot blot out the greatness of the American experiment, but it certainly alters it for many, for all. It is incomprehensible to anyone in this chamber that there was a point in time in the history of the United States of America where one person could be owned as property by another person for any reason, and certainly because of their racial or ethnic background. It is repulsive. It was shameful that that occurred. And here we are, 250 years after our founding, 160 years after people fought a civil war to right those wrongs. Here we are, still dealing with the repercussions of those problems. Reparations is a controversial but a significant issue. And this Reparations Commission would set us on a path of one of only a small handful of states to have chosen to individually take up these issues in a cumulative way, in a focused way. The Reparations Commission in and of itself, and the way that the bill is structured, could provide or could recommend a wide variety of possible remedies. They could recommend monetary payments to individuals who can demonstrate a real connection to this terrible, terrible thing that occurred generations and generations ago, but occurred. They could propose a wide variety of policy recommendations and policy initiatives to attempt to address some issues that felt systemically generated from the stain of slavery and from the stain of policies that perhaps followed even after slavery was outlawed by the Emancipation Proclamation and by the victory of Abraham Lincoln and his principles in this country. But one thing, and this is what the amendment specifically addresses, the wording of the bill as situated says that these particular remedies could be afforded to individuals. And individuals is important. But as I've said many, many times, we are not the United States of Maryland. We are simply one state among many. And so what the amendment does is it would limit the commission's ability to make recommendations for relief or remedies to be extended to people who are Maryland residents, who are in Maryland today. Policy prescriptions, if we chose, or if the commission chose to say we're going to embark on a policy initiative to better the lives, to improve the lives of the ancestors of people who were discriminated against or enslaved, by the very definition of that, they would almost have to be Maryland residents. Because the policies that we enact cannot extend to North Carolina or to California or to Norway or to Mexico or to Florida. They are policies within our boundaries. But payments perhaps could. Payments, direct payments, if that was what was recommended, an individual could come in, because that's what they are under the bill, individual, and say, well, I've demonstrated to the sufficient standard of proof that my ancestor 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 generations ago perhaps was enslaved in Maryland, or my ancestors 2, 3 generations ago perhaps were discriminated against by some of the policies referred to as the Jim Crow era, whenever you define that, and now this commission says I should get money. But I live in North Carolina. I live in Norway. I live in wherever. I don't live in Maryland. I no longer have any connection, and perhaps myself and my family have not had any connection to Maryland for decades, perhaps for hundreds of years. Perhaps my ancestor was enslaved here horribly, horribly, in 1840 and 1850. But the records and the historical evidence suggest that they left, or that perhaps, unfortunately, they perished here. And that ever since then, I haven't had any connection, and my forebears haven't had any connection to Maryland. But I'd like a payment from the state of Maryland, even though it wasn't the state of Maryland's policy per se to allow or to permit slavery in 1750 or 1790 or 1840 or 1855. It was more of a national policy. And so all that I would suggest is that, and all the amendment would do, is it limits the ability of the commission to recommend relief or remedy to people who are Maryland residents. Because as much as we would like to, we cannot solve and we cannot absolve and we cannot remedy the entire problem of the United States of America that came from this terrible, terrible policy. We can only help those within our borders, within our boundaries, because we're going to be helping them with our own tax dollars. And it's not appropriate to make those types of payments to people whose connection to the state of Maryland, while valid, while demonstrated by proof about their ancestors and their suffering from this horrible situation, we're giving it to them now. We will have people come from all over 50 states and try to find ways to receive those payments, justifiable or not, however you feel about it. That is what will happen. And we have seen this, and I don't mean this in any flippant way at all. The good gentleman from Charles County has tried to do something very, very good for people who were hurt and who were damaged. And now we have found that it has such significant budgetary implications for it, because even the people who, like, I want that remedy, I need that remedy, people will get involved that says, I need to benefit from it financially. And people will come from all over the country and all over the world, and they'll try to demonstrate that they have some entitlement to our taxpayers' dollars if the Reparations Commission is allowed to recommend financial payments, resources that go to non-Maryland residents, to people who do not have a direct connection today with our state. All the amendment would do, it doesn't stop the commission, doesn't stop their ability to consider alternatives. It says that if you're recommending the awarding of benefits, remedies, whatever you want to call it, under this bill, the class of people eligible to receive them have to be Marylanders. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to take a moment to say thank you to the good delegate who actually discussed the amendments in concept with me before he had them. And I'm really grateful, and then provided them to me. It just makes life so much easier, so I am so grateful for the courtesy. I want to respond to your amendment and ask this body to resist the amendment because of the following reasons. I would like you to look at page 4, please, lines 20 and 21. And if you go to Senate Bill 587, page 4, line 20 to 21, it states they will look at eligibility requirements for applicants, if any, including appropriate methods of demonstrating eligibility. So the commission is coming up with the eligibility requirements for the applicants, so this is already covered. But let's say they did not consider it. I would like you to go to page 3, line 22 to 24. In line 22 to 24 states, on or before January 1st, 2027, they must submit a preliminary report of its findings and recommendations to the governor. And then we also have another opportunity on November 1st, 2027. So we will be able to know whether they consider or not, and we can actually yourself attend the hearings or write a letter. But most importantly, when they make their recommendations and they come back to this body, if there are proposals that anyone in this body, 141 of us, would like to pursue about the recommendations, and they require a bill that will be drafted, as we all know, every bill comes with what? A fiscal note. That fiscal note, you know, you can actually have a say in it. It will come to us, all right? We will be able to, also when we have a hearing in the committee, we will be able to limit to residents, if that is an option that the committee of jurisdiction wants to pursue, or if this body wanted to pursue. Let's say that the committee did not agree with it and included the provision that you're arguing against. Well, you have an opportunity on the floor to amend it if you wanted to. What I'm saying by that is that there's so many steps and opportunities that you will have. And what I'm asking the body to resist this amendment is because I want you to allow the commission to do its work. They're looking at this issue in a comprehensive manner. We do not want to be prescriptive. We do not want to limit their work. Let's see what they come up with. The question is, will this body have an opportunity to look at those recommendations, add to it, take away from it? Absolutely. I ask you respectfully to resist this amendment.
Yes.
Brief Administrator. Thank you. The chair of the committee is a wonderful advocate in good faith for the position, and I do appreciate her perspective. But my grandfather told me something once when I was, 12 or 13 years old. We built a deck on my grandparents' house. Now, I wasn't a whole heck of a lot of help, but he gave me a phrase that I've always remembered and I've heard many times over the years. In the beginning, you measure twice, so you only have to cut once. And some of you are like, what does that mean? Well, what that means is if you're specific and you're accurate and you have a plan at the beginning, then you don't have to come back at the end of the process to fix what could have been fixed. What I will suggest to you is that based upon fairly reliable estimates of the number of individuals who were horribly enslaved in the state of Maryland in the 1700s and maybe even up through the 1800s, that there will be hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of potential beneficiaries of a Reparations Commission recommendation scattered throughout potentially the globe, certainly the United States. Millions upon millions. That is sad. It is shameful. It is accurate, however. And that if the commission makes these recommendations and the estimate comes back and says, in order to provide, and this is what has been the experience in some other states that have begun considering this, the estimates have come back in the billions of dollars. And then it will be upon everyone here to say, well, we wanted the commission to consider this. We wanted to do the right thing. We wanted to do something meaningful for people who have this in their family lineage, but we can't afford it. Can't afford it. Can't afford to send that payment to someone in California and New York and Georgia and Canada and Norway and wherever else. Can't afford it. So now we're not going to do it. Now we'll bring it up on the floor. Now we'll do it in the committee. Now we're not going to do it. If we start in the beginning and say, look, for people who reside in this state that are our constituents, our families, our people, and they can trace themselves, and we're giving the commission wide latitude to determine eligibility standards and how do you prove that you were potentially discriminated against during the Jim Crow era, your family was, we're giving them a tremendous amount of latitude still. But we do say that at the end of the day, applicant A for benefit A, you have to be someone who's here residing, a citizen in Maryland, someone who's part of our state and our state's responsibility to take care of going forward. That's all I'm looking for. Measure twice, cut once, come up with a sound, reasonable policy that may rationally be enforced in the beginning, and you won't be back here in 2 years fighting about those difficult issues again because you can't afford it. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Subject for the debate, move the amendment.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you so much. I want to point out to the good gentleman who I'm very grateful that gave me the amendments ahead of time, that this is not about money. This is a really serious issue. This is about the past, the damage they had, a lasting effect on the political, economic, social, physical, mental, and cultural well-being of Black people. And that this commission will not just look at money, which is what the good gentleman has focused on. There are jurisdictions who have actually decided to issue an apology. That doesn't cost any money. And you can send that apology to the family members of Harriet Tubman who have moved out of the state because they were forced to move because of the policies that were intentional and divisive and kept Black people down. The bill also calls for, it does call for property tax rebates, social service assistance, down payment assistance, child care, debt forgiveness, and it's a study. Let me just focus on that. It's a study, a comprehensive study that does not have a predetermined outcome. And your statement is like it's a predetermined outcome. It is not. We do not want to tie their hands. We want them to be able to look at it with an open mind, in a comprehensive way, to be able to look at the roots of the problem, not just the surface. Again, I asked the body to resist this amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the negative, the amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment of the desk 803620/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Won't belabor what we've just talked about. The bill has a list of things for the commission to consider as they go about their work of making recommendations. What this amendment would do is it would very specifically, again, it doesn't undercut anything else they may choose to do. It would very specifically say that one of the things that they must consider and they must give a finite report back on is what is an estimate of the fiscal impact on the state of their recommendations. I heard my friend from Prince George's County, the committee chairman's remark, we should issue an apology for people who were enslaved in Maryland to their families today. I don't need a commission to do that. I don't need a commission to tell me to do that. We should do that today. I don't think that it costs very much. I'm sure there's a way to open a window for people to go onto a portal in our technological world and demonstrate that they have some connection to families and ancestors who were enslaved here, and we should apologize to them today. The fiscal impact, it's not a predetermination, but there doesn't seem to be much sense. The common definition of the word reparations implies the concept of paying someone back. That's what a reparation is. It gives you something to attempt to recompense you for something you have lost. There has to be a fiscal element to it, or else the word has no real value. Programs that we may choose or that the commission may choose to implement, I would say this, we can do those today. You want to invest more money in minority communities for their school systems to counter the legacy of disenfranchisement or disinvestment in those communities? I thought that's what we were doing in the blueprint. You want to do things to help people who believe that they have been, not believe, but have been discriminated against historically in housing through a variety of housing policies, whether private or public. I thought that's what we were doing on a lot of these bills we vote on. I thought we were doing that. I'm confused because I thought we were doing that. You want to invest in minority health disparities and put more money into communities to have them have better hospitals and better programs. I thought we were doing that. I thought we were doing that. We have a lot of bills, many of them very good. Some of them we have honest disputes and debates about the particulars of, but I thought we were already doing that. In the state of Maryland, I thought we were already doing that. I look around and I'm proud to be here because I don't see people on the basis of your race, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud to get to know people in this room and get to know them as human beings and see them for all of the goodness and the ability that they have. And I don't disrespect their background and I don't minimize their pain or their perspective, but I'm happy to see them without that sort of sense to it. But if we're going to have a reparations commission or a reparation bill, if there's no fiscal impacts, what's the point? If there's no fiscal impacts to their recommendations, we can apologize tomorrow. We should do it today. And so all that the amendment does is it includes and says that when this commission that we're authorizing for a couple of years to do this very deep dive on this very sensitive and significant and important issue, when they report back, as I think many, many other commissions or task forces or work groups that we would set up will do, is they will give us, to the best of their ability, a reliable estimate of what the fiscal impacts to the state would be of their recommendations. So that day one, we know what those are. Now, I think what we'll probably hear is, well, we have fiscal we have fiscal notes and DLS will analyze all of it in a bill. That's fine. That's fine. But I don't see any reason that we should not include the fiscal impacts to the state in the recommendation. Maybe the fiscal impacts are minimal. Maybe they just duplicate programs that we're already doing or hone them or direct them to particular communities that we can all agree on. But we should acknowledge that there has to be a financial element to this potential program because that's what reparations means. And that's all that we would ask, is that the fiscal impact of the state be specifically listed as one of the myriad of things that the commission reports back on, so all of us as policymakers have a great idea of what that is before we start the bill process. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to start with the definition of reparations. It does say the making of amends for wrong one has done by paying money. However, it also says, or otherwise helping those who have been wrong, making amends. When my child does something wrong, I don't make my children pay me. Unless when they were learning Spanish and they refused to speak Spanish, I would charge them a quarter for every word they use in English, okay? I did that one summer. And my sister-in-law, who's in the gallery, can tell you I did it to her son also. But that's not the meaning, the complete meaning. I want you to take the entire meaning, which means you make amends. And that is what this commission will look at. Look at the history in a comprehensive way, and then make recommendations to make amends or to make reparations. Not one, but all of it. The other thing that I wanted to address is, if you go to the bill, I'd like you to go to page 4, please, Senate Bill 587, and I'd like you to look at line 23, and let's read it. It says, the commission shall provide an estimate of the cost associated with awarding any type of reparations recommended by the commission. And then it says, if monetary compensation is a type of reparation recommended by the commission, 1, on line 27, the amount of monetary compensation recommended, and methods of calculating the amount, including as appropriate, and it goes on and on. So you see, my friend, it's already in the bill, and it's not needed, and I ask the body to resist, and please vote red. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the negative, the amendment fails.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 163226/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Body, I'm glad that the good chair of HGO clarified what reparations is. Because what my amendment does is changes who we would be looking at and who is deserving of reparations right now, right this minute, by wrongs committed by our state right now, with victims who are alive today, who are incredibly, incredibly deserving of a commission to study how to pay them back for what our state put them through. Some of you saw my chair get up and special order a bill. It was a bill that's going to cap the access to reparations, to restitution, for victims of child sex abuse at the hands of employees of the state of Maryland. It's not fair, and it's not equal justice, because it affects a very specific group of people. And I'm going to tell you who, and I'm going to tell you why this amendment is so important. It affects children trapped in foster care, those trapped in DSS care, and those who were trapped in the care of DJS, who were raped and molested and could not get away from their abusers. They could not get away from them. 78.5% of those children are Black children. Black children. We've heard a lot this session about values from another chair of another committee. We've passed a lot of studies. So I guess some of our values are spending money on researching deer crossings or EV charging stations, funding the Blue Line, which the feds already denied. How about a staircase study? We've got money for that. We've got money for that. But we don't have money for children who were raped in the care and custody of the state of Maryland. When you add up what we are intending to pass, if you look at a child who could have been raped in, let's say they were 15, and you add out their life expectancy, just assuming that they live a full life, which I think is a stretch, you'd be looking at an average of $6,000 a year for a child who was raped in the care of our state. $6,000 a year. Most of our school board members make more than that. It's appalling, it's embarrassing, and these are victims who did not die 200 years ago. They aren't dead at all. They're here, they come here, and many of you don't get the opportunity to see them cry from the pain they experience because you're not on the Judiciary Committee. God bless you. It's excruciating. They are deserving of reparations. They are here today. They are victims today. We allowed this to happen to them while some of you were sitting on the floor. There is no one in the state of Maryland more deserving of reparations than the people who have experienced sexual abuse at the hands of our state, period. So if you want to talk about values, this is where we should be putting our values. These are the people who should be deserving of a commission to study how to appropriately compensate them. I don't want to come back here in 60 years, 100 years and say their children deserve reparations. They deserve it today for what happened to them today. So I'm going to read some of their names to you. Leanna Lagua, Matthew Tenney, Michaela Beatty, Anthony Phillips, Monique Mason, Sean Dove, Antonio Bryant, Nakia Shorts, Lisa Corey, Robert Hendley, Nelisha Gibbs, Orlando Jones, Marshall Tanzamore, Channing Griffin, Mariah Ragg, Lori Shrouds, Philip Queen, Walter Walbort, Darnell Merriweather, Melissa Rainsfelder, Mason Salisbury, Doreen Berry, Sierra Brown, Robert Bridges, Maria Louise Tehran, Sierra Brown, Jacqueline Johnson, John Purdham, Kenneth Orlando Jordan Jr., Amabeth McGuigan, William Zachary Harding, Anthony Eberhart, Antoine Wright, Latrell Butler, Mason Salisbury, Doreen Berry, Sierra Brown, Ashley Purnell, Leanna Sanchez, David Lee Airy, Arnett Fenwick, Leo A. Brown Jr., Paul Gardner, and thousands more children. Thousands. And as more names come in, I will stand up again on any bill I can to continue to read the names of victims that our state has harmed today. That is what reparations is, paying back the aggrieved and the injured. So don't wait 200 years to help the families of these victims who we have harmed today. A green vote on this amendment, Madam Speaker, is a green vote to fix a wrong that we have done in our state today. Thank you.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to first thank you for giving me the amendment yesterday and for giving me and the committee the courtesy. And what I'm about to tell you, it's not personal. I hope you don't get offended. But this is not an either or. They're both very important issues. I don't know if you know this, used to be a child neglect lawyer in Washington, D.C. I used to drive to the foster care homes. I used to find them counseling. I had one kid that was molested in 7 different foster homes. I had a kid on a Friday evening. I received a call from the foster mom that said, Attorney Peña Melnick, come and get this kid now. I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. When I went to her house, she had a black garbage bag with his things, and I had to drive him to the social worker. So please don't tell me, because I lived it. There's a reason why I don't do that job anymore, because I used to go home and wake up at 3, 4 in the morning, okay, in a panic that something will happen to one of my kids because they were my kids. So everyone here, you don't know what they go through. We all have a story. Respectfully. Second, anyone here can introduce a bill. Today, this morning, we voted on a bill, to introduce the bill. You can introduce this bill. Anyone can introduce a bill. Okay? This bill that you have in here is a serious issue. We're talking about harms that were done to enslaved people in Maryland. People that came from Africa in chains. They were separated from their families. That when they came here, they had to leave their culture and be with a master that controlled their every doing. They couldn't even learn to read because they were punished and could lose their lives. If they had a kid, they would take their kid and sell it to someone else. If women were raped and it wasn't a crime. My chief of staff, who's a 72-year-old black woman, told me today, my grandma was a good-looking woman. She had to dig a hole under the house and hide herself when the master would come and visit so that she wouldn't be raped. So both issues are very important, all right? It's not about choosing one over the other. I know that the Judiciary Committee is working on this issue. I know that anyone here in this body can put in a bill regarding this issue tomorrow, actually today. So please, it's not about if you vote a certain way, you're not supporting this issue. Both of them are very important. And to me, who has lived it, who works so hard as a neglect lawyer, as a public defender, and then a prosecutor, trust me, I get it. I more than anyone get it, because it's a vicious cycle. And what we're doing in this body, when we pass bills dealing with education, when we pass bills dealing with housing, when we pass bills dealing with MBE, we are trying to address a problem. But what we have not done is address it in a comprehensive manner to look at the roots of the problem so that you can have a very long, consistent, profound solution that will last. I ask this body to vote red on this amendment also for this reason. Do you have your Maryland House rules? I'd like you to take it out, please. I want you to look at page 40. Rule 46 says change of purpose. It says 46A, no bill or resolution may be amended in its passage through the House or by a conference committee by the use of the phrase strike out everything after the word a bill, but this is the section that applies to your amendment, or by any other amendment or series of amendments which the effect of changing the original purpose of the bill or resolution. You see, my friend, this amendment changes the purpose of the bill. They're very different issues. I went ahead and had your amendment put in a reprint. When you look at the reprint, page 1, you get rid of line 10 to 17, all of it, the purpose of the bill. You get rid of, on page 2, line 1 through 5, which is, again, the purpose, the objective of the bill. You go on to page 3, you get rid of line 3 to 4, and then you go to line 20 to 21, and you take out historical inequality and you put in child sex abuse. You get rid of anything that deals with enslaved people, which is what this commission is about. You go to page 4 and you look at line 9 through 13, you get rid of it. Line 16 through 19, you get rid of it. And then you go to line 29 to 30 and you get rid of it. You get rid of the entire purpose of the bill. Yes, this issue is important, and I feel you, and thank you for caring, because we do care, okay? I'm not minimizing it at all. I feel it in my heart deeply, because I know it. This is why we had a bill on the floor that dealt with pediatric overstay in the hospitals, and for the first time, and I thank the Appropriations Committee, we were able to find funding for the kids that get stuck in the hospital, ages 6 to 18, who are there sometimes more than 40 days, sometimes months. And guess what, my friend? I spent most of my session working on that bill. And you know where that bill is right now? In the Senate. It's been held twice already. Okay? So if you want to do something for these kids, I mean this with all due respect, please call some of your friends and tell them to help get that bill through, because it's needed. I do understand the issue. I feel you. Trust me, every single one of my colleagues here feels you. But this is a different bill, and you're changing the purpose, and it violates Rule 46, which this body adopted. Please resist. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really do appreciate the good chair from HGO. She runs her committee in a way that I think is laudable, and I have a great deal of respect for her. I will say, however, that I talked in detail with drafting when I drew this amendment, and this amendment is in fact not in violation of Rule 46. We discussed that specifically, and the reason it's not is because this is about reparations, and reparations are paid to people who are injured, not people who are the descendants of people who are injured. You repair an injury, just like a doctor, on the victim who experienced the injury. That's what a reparation actually is, and that is why they agreed to draft my amendment, and that is why it was not a violation at all of Rule 46. So I hear the words of my friend from multiple counties. She represents many counties. And I know where her heart is. But I think she extended her own concern for these victims who I'm talking about to folks on the floor today who do not share quite as strong of a concern. And I know that because we just special ordered a bill today that seeks to completely limit their access to equal justice. It was already voted out of the House Judiciary Committee, and it is going to be on second reader tomorrow morning. So you will all have an opportunity, should you choose to vote against this amendment, to show us your values. To show your values to the state of Maryland and to the victims who were raped and molested by state employees. You will get the opportunity tomorrow to stand with 10 toes on the ground. Yeah. Well, I'm allowed to say it a little wrong. Anyways, you will get the chance to do that. It's coming. I am praying tonight that all of you please do the right thing. You may not agree with me today, but I will be watching all of you tomorrow, and I will continue to read the names of these child victims, and I will continue to remind you tomorrow, if you do not make a choice that supports those victims, that you may no longer stand on high moral ground. You may no longer tell us that you're here for the victims. You're here for the budget. You're here to save money. You're here to protect the state from liability. You're not here for the victims, and I'll never let it go by again. You'll never be able to say it again. I'm going to stand up every single time. I push my amendment, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Madam
Committee
Speaker?
Chair.
Thank you. You know, we don't just have one value. We have different values and principles that are instilled in us that we have and hold dearly at the same time. This amendment, it's a different purpose. It's a different group of people. It doesn't even come to HCO. It will go to a different committee. It's absolutely not proper. You know, it does not mean that your amendment is not important, please. And I will say, I know every single person on this body that I'm speaking for them, that it is important, that they care. To do this job here, it takes a lot. You don't come here for the perks. I don't know what perks they are because I don't get them. You come here because you care and you want to make a difference, so they do care. So please don't say that. This is not about one group over the other. We all care. But today we have in front of us a commission to look at enslaved people. That is it. This is a group of people, your amendment, that are important, and I feel it. And yes, we want to help. But the bill you have here is very different, and it's a different purpose. Please resist. Vote red.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to stand in support of the amendment because there was a group of people, a group of victims in my committee who were enslaved that are demanding justice today. Reparations is about repaying people for wrongs that were done to them. I'd like everybody to take a minute and think about the worst, most horrific thing that was done to any Marylander in the history of our state. Think of a couple things. The most horrific thing to me is to have the state of Maryland be the biggest offender for pedophiles and child rapists in the history of the state. When we've been discussing this issue over the years, we were told the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church. Well, guess what? The biggest offender wasn't the Catholic Church. It was the state of Maryland. It was the state of Maryland. It was a body who had children in detention. Some of these children were raped over years. Some of these children were raped by multiple people. Some of these children were raped dozens and dozens of times. And we were told, the members of Judiciary told, we need to make them whole. And why this is directly germane is because today we were told we needed to cut the reparations for those children who were raped at the hands of the state in half. In half. So these children who were raped and are now adults and came to see us in committee, and we looked them right in the eye and we heard their stories, those folks may receive about $6,000 a year maximum under the new regime. So I can't understand why we would stand to talk about people who lived between 1877 and 1965 and not think about the group of people that came this year to see us in committee to tell us their horrific stories about how they were enslaved and raped at the hands of employees at the state of Maryland. And frankly, I can't think of anybody who would argue against making people whole. But I'd urge you to consider this. We hear this issue is about fiscal responsibility. And the reason we need to limit reparations for these child rape victims is because fiscal responsibility. Isn't it ironic that the first time I've witnessed someone stand up for fiscal responsibility here is to limit the state's liability to an army of pedophiles and child rapists that abuse thousands of children in our state? So I would just urge you all to consider the people that, the victims that came to us this year, they need to be repaid too. And today, isn't it ironic that today, this body said, we're cutting what we're going to pay you back, even though you suffered the most horrendous and horrific abuse in your life, even though you are a ruined, broken person. The stories were horrific. The most striking testimony was the man who said, I remember being in the detention facility, and at night, when the noises would start, I would just pray that it wasn't my turn again. That's slavery. And it's directly germane. And it's directly germane to paying people back and making them whole. And the idea that we need a new system to pay for reparations that doesn't honor these people is a complete injustice. So that's why it's so easy for me to stand up today for these abuse victims and include them in this bill.
Chair ECM.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will try to be brief. I have the distinct displeasure of fitting into both of these groups. Clearly, the way I look, I'm descendants of slaves, and I think you guys know my personal story. I'm taken aback when we dismiss what African Americans in this country have gone through, and that it's really apples and oranges. You know, growing up, you know, being black it's not just a color. We look what happened and the fact how further we are behind because we couldn't get loans because gentlemen came back from World War II. They couldn't buy houses, they couldn't invest, they couldn't buy land. Nothing to build on but quicksand. You know, when you go to the hood, they call it the trap for a reason, because you're trapped there. Because we've lowered our standard as African Americans where the whole world views us as criminals, as violent offenders. You know, angry black woman. I have to watch what I say up here because I'm going to be a violent black man. We still have to watch what we do and what we say around white people because at any point in time before we're accused of something, there's a good chance we're going to go to jail. Because at the end of the day, the legacy of slavery isn't something that happened 200 years ago. It happened in the 50s, it happened in the 60s. People were beaten. Towns were burned. People's livelihood. Imagine being a black man and a porter, being called boy in front of your wife and begging for tips. Neither of you nobody looks on him like a man. He doesn't. It's hard for his wife. Look at our families. 80% of us are born out of wedlock. Things that were supposed to help us have broken us. This is just an opportunity to study the impacts of slavery and possible reparations. And I say that for a reason because the reason you heard the speaker on the floor heard these tales is because of the work that I've put in over 10 years up here. And when we testified year after year, nobody ever asked for a dime. It was never about money. I did not meet a single victim that wanted a specific amount. Now their attorneys do now. Oh yeah, the plaintiff's attorneys, the people that I never met. And I best believe all these people that came up now asking for money and testifying in front of Judiciary, I'd never seen them before. I was left to fight this battle by myself, which is fine because I'm a grown-ass man. But I'll say this. Let's make it very clear. It was never about money. So don't say about making somebody whole. Don't you dare for a minute make yourself feel better because you give a broken man $1 million. Don't don't you ever think that that's going to undo the damage that was done to anybody, because it wasn't about the money. It was about an opportunity to tell your story and face your abuser. So let's not get confused here. And let's also be very clear. Our taxpayers didn't move abusers from place to place to place. This was about the institutions that knew what they did, and they hid it. There's no stories about prison guards being moved from here to here to here. There may be some, but there's not many, because horrible things happen. And you know, I'm not going to be the one to dismiss it. But please don't think that you can pat yourself on the back because you threw money at people. The study isn't just about money. It's about ways to benefit a community. What you heard in Judiciary the other day was just about money and how to benefit a plaintiff's attorney. And if you think that these broken people, as you called them, will do well with $1 million in their pocket, you are sadly mistaken. At the end of the day, I want to make this very clear, and I did not plan on standing up, but it pains me to think that somehow we don't care about victims because it went from 800,000 to 400,000, because it was never about the money. We never testified one time about gimme, gimme, gimme. Because ain't nothing that you're going to give me besides an opportunity to speak that's ever going to make my life any better. And all I wanted these individuals to be able to do is tell their story. So you don't have to chastise people here because we're not paying $100,000, $500,000, $1 million per claim, $2 million. Just raise the number. But also make sure you vote for the buffer in the budget, because we're going to have to pay for that somehow. And again, my taxpayers deserve justice too. To say that a prison guard's actions, that everybody in the state's responsible when we didn't know, is like saying everybody's responsible for that drunk driver that killed someone. I just wanted their stories to be heard. Please don't malign and don't bastardize what I fought for, because now there are plaintiff's attorneys involved, because they're the ones in with the money. And the people that you hear from now are people who are represented by counsel. The people y'all heard from before, nobody was represented. These victims came up year after year. They didn't get paid, didn't have anybody paying their transportation. They come up because they wanted their stories heard. And my colleagues finally did that and gave that to them. So for all those money chasers out there, and for you that think that you can throw money at this problem, don't worry. Pat yourself on the back, but you're not changing nothing. This study may. So I will please ask you, please don't impute these victims. Please don't bring them into this. You'll be able to do it again tomorrow. We can all do this again tomorrow. But please don't bring them into this. And please don't support this amendment.
Speaker, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the good delegate from Charles, but I think what he should have said, it's not about the money for me. It's about the story, but it's not about the money for me. For him, it's not about the money, but he doesn't speak for every one of us child sex abuse victims, unfortunately for him. So there's more of us, a lot more of us. And we don't all drive around in $120,000 cars. We're not all counsel for somebody else. So for some people, they may want some financial restitution. They may use that money to make their lives feel just a little bit less painful. Because when you are a sex abuse victim, you may get through it, but you may still not survive. And so financial reparations is important for some folks, even if it's not for him. I press my amendment, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Noes have it. Clerk will take the call.
Are we on the amendment? On the amendment?
On the amendment.
Madam Speaker?
Clerk would take the call. There being 101 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Is there any Any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered. Are you
Third.
standing up for something?
Yeah, I wanted to, thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to offer some third reader remarks. If somebody else has an amendment, I will be more than happy to yield the floor.
You here to explain your vote or what you're planning to do? What is it that you want to do?
Well, Madam Speaker, the
Explain
bill
your
is...
vote?
No, Madam Speaker, the bill is on third reader. I'd like to offer some third reader remarks.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is the appropriate time to do that. So, thank you, Madam.
All right, make your amendments.
I'm not offering an amendment. I'm offering third reader remarks on the bill.
Make your remarks
on the bill, Madam Speaker. Friends, I tell you, I'm going to bring it back to like the reality that we're currently living in, because I'm getting text messages from people watching online and all kinds of jazz. And this session, well, last week we passed, in order to pass a budget, we had to pass the largest tax increase in Maryland history. But we did nothing to correct the long-term structural deficit. Marylanders are struggling with energy bills, and we're 5 days away from the end of session. We've done nothing to address that. On the public safety front, we've offered at least 2 controversial bills that the majority party's own members have walked off. In my opinion, it makes society a good bit less safe. So the average Marylander is like wondering, what the heck are you guys doing in Annapolis? And then now we have a reparation bill on the floor. When political parties are out of ideas, they resort to distractions. They resort to demonizing. And this is the bill that we have here. I want to refer to the bill because I heard on this previous debate that it's referred to as a study. It's more than a study, it's a commission. It's a commission with the treasurer and the comptroller. The deck is stacked on this. There's no minority party representation. I want you to look at page 5 of the bill. It talks about creating a fund. Page 4 of the bill talks about the appropriate benefits for reparation, including official statement of apology, monetary compensation, property tax rebates, social service assistance, licensing and permitting, fee waivers, reimbursement, down payment assistance for purchase of residential property, business incentives, child care, debt forgiveness, higher ed tuition payment waivers, and reimbursement. Let's call this bill out what it is. It's a commission to set up a reparation tax. How it will be implemented, who knows? But I think it's disgraceful that we're going to set up a reparation tax that might tax one race and give to another race. It is the year 2025. Are you kidding me? All in the name of equity. Equity is a Marxist term. Splits people up and divides them. You're either in the oppressor class or you're the oppressed class. In America, you don't get equity. You get equality, meaning equal rules for everyone. We keep hearing our Democratic colleagues in this chamber, the last couple of days we've been treated to, well, there's members in this chamber that have benefited from slavery. We did hear that. I just would like to know who and how. Who and how? Name names, don't talk in generality, because saying that another member here benefited from slavery is very offensive. I keep hearing about generational wealth. Well, that's true. Some people have inherited money. But millions of people in this state are like me. My parents didn't inherit anything. Thank God my parents are still alive. I haven't inherited anything. And I want to hear the moral arguments about making somebody, this list of grievances that we spelled out, all happened before I was born, before millions of Marylanders were born and had anything to do with slavery or discrimination. But we're going to hold them accountable? What are we doing here? The last couple days, we've been treated to an analogy of an imaginary race. Starts off with, some people started ahead of other people. Really? It's a perverse way to looking at society. It first tells you, well, there's only one winner and one loser. That's not how society works. No two people in this chamber can define success the same way. And first of all, no two people have the same finish line. The truth is we're in a mutual benefit of society, and most of the time, while sometimes we may be in competition with each other, the majority of the time we're running the race of life together and hopefully in the same direction. Stop dividing people. This bill can be summed up really best by a quote from famed economist Thomas Sowell. Racism in America is not dead, but limited. It's not dead, but is on life support. Kept alive by politicians and race hustlers and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. It's time to stop this nonsense. America is the guiding light of the world. We represent joy and optimism, where people in this country have the guaranteed freedom, no matter who your mom is, no matter how your daddy is, what your gender is, your race affiliation, your religious affiliation. You have the guaranteed opportunity in this country to do whatever you want. You have the freedom to go as far as you can. As far as your God-given talent and worth ethic will take you. America is the least racist, most diverse country on the planet. And it would be really helpful that we would all come together at some point and elected officials that represent it, well, maybe they can appreciate it. Thank you, Madam.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, explain my vote.
Explain your
Madam
vote.
Speaker.
Explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to explain my vote because I think that sometimes we've forgotten what this commission bill is really about. We heard the names of people that have suffered, and I remember this commission bill is about the names of people we'll never know. They were memorialized as but a gender and an age. There were sometimes better descriptors given to cattle or antiques than to their humanity. But beyond those that were enslaved, I think we have often spoken about taxpayers in this body. We spent a lot of time talking about taxpayers in this session. And I think we've forgotten that there were taxpayers in the late 1800s, in the early 1900s, through the mid-20th century, who did not get the benefit of the taxes they paid. There were roads they paid for they could not drive down. There were schools they paid for they could not enter. There were colleges they paid for they could not gain admission to. And all the while they paid taxes on wages that were unjust and unequal. So when we talk about when is it the right time, it wasn't ever a good time to be enslaved. It was never a good time to be discriminated against. And it's never been a good time to be erased in your humanity. But we are offering just a conversation and a commission to acknowledge that they were here, that they lived, that they contributed, and I think they merit our time because they lived, they died, they dared to be free and didn't get the chance, and guess what? They were taxpayers that never got what they invested in. That's right. That is why I'm proud to vote green.
Okay.
Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just really moved when we think about the fact that we serve in not just a General Assembly that was built by enslaved people, but it was this very state that provided America with the blueprint for the institution of enslaving African people. It started right here. The Doctrine of Exclusion of 1638 was passed by the then Maryland Colony Council that said no person of African descent, and I hope you're recording me because this is a history lesson, no person of African descent will benefit from the fruits of white society. And it worked so well in the state of Maryland that every other state began to adopt it, and it was later called what we know today as the slave codes. We started it right here. So if there's any state that should be leading on the issue of reparations, and we haven't even got to compensatory payments or anything, this is just about studying. But there's so much opposition by the minority party. The same people banning books and history. It is for the exact same reason. But I'm proud to vote green on this because I recognize that a state that gave America the blueprint is a state that should be leading. And while we haven't led, here's an opportunity for us to do better, and to do better by passing this bill. And I'm a proud green vote. And thank you to the committee, and thank you to everyone who helped to bring this bill to the floor so that we can show the rest of America what justice, what equity, and what doing right by the people who contributed so much blood, sweat, and tears into this country. Sweat equity. What about their descendants? I don't benefit from this bill. There was slavery, there was the institution of slavery in the Caribbean, but I recognize that it happened here, and it has created the kind of a society that we're in. We want unity, we gotta have justice, and you can't have justice without truth-telling, and you can't have truth-telling without courage, and this is about courage. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Explain your vote.
Many here know me as Jamila J. Woods. I was born Justina Dorothea Stewart, 5th generation great-granddaughter of Lena Ross, whose family was brought here from Ghana and enslaved. Lena was the older sister of Arminta Minty Ross, whom you know as Harriet Tubman, my 5th generation great-aunt. I stand today as a descendant of formerly enslaved people. My descendants and the descendants of many in this room were traumatized, separated, and the intended prey of enslavement, racial discrimination, sexual violations, lynchings, and more. My family continues to be impacted today from the egregious actions of the past. The historical injustices that benefited some continue, as some in this very room still enjoy, perhaps unintentionally, unearned, ongoing generational wealth and white privilege without acknowledgement or thoughts for concrete intentions toward restitution to those harmed. This proposed reparations commission is a bold and necessary step to determine the most appropriate redress from the unending harm of enslavement, Jim Crow, and explicit racial policies that led to the current racial wealth gap, unequal educational opportunities, disparities in housing, healthcare, and attempts to erase our history, while at the same time allowing current descendants of slaveholders and some immigrants to unceasingly and unfairly benefit from the spoils. Historically, our government provided reparations to slave owners who lost income stolen from those determined to be their property, those enslaved people freed when slavery was abolished and when emancipation decreed. Enslaved people weren't compensated for their unethical forced labor, even after being promised 40 acres and a mule, a minuscule relief to aid in achieving economic independence after the Civil War, but never provided. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
To explain my vote.
Explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't think there's anybody in here that's ever going to argue the evils of slavery. It was evil. It was horrible. It is a stain on this country. This is my committee. We had a great conversation. Here's where I take great pause. The vehicle in which we moved to fix this. We just heard of some of the horrible things and atrocities brought about by our state programs and entrusting in government. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is my concern. We have so many programs running into this state that don't run correctly because we trust big government. I trust people. The individual is great. So many people in this room are successful, regardless of your race, creed, or color. I've never been black, I know. I have no clue what it's like. I know you went through some hell. I don't think this is going to fix it. I think it's going to make it worse. Program after program after program. We say government's going to fix it for you, and it's made it worse. I know that there was a shot at the minority party. We haven't been in power here since 1922. And this program after program just keeps messing up. I gain nothing by you not being successful. Neither does anybody else in here. I gain nothing by a kid in Baltimore City not being educated and becoming the most successful kid in the world. Nothing. There is nothing to gain by holding other people down. I worry that this bill is going to do the opposite of what it's designed to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, can I explain my vote very briefly?
Your vote.
Colleagues, I rise not in anger, but in reflection and in faith. I rise as a proud descendant of enslaved Africans, people who were stripped of everything but their dignity, and even that they had to fight to hold on to. The sin, the stain that is in the skin of our state is never going to be fully rubbed out. But what we can do through this study is that we can shine a light on the dark corners of this history and give the specific descendants of that harm the dignity of being seen, acknowledged, and repaired. I think what is often missed here in the conversation about policies and programs is because when we do things as a state, they typically help everyone, regardless if you're black or white, regardless if you're in Capitol Heights or Dundalk. We are specifically talking about individualized repair and restitution and closure. You all do not know what it's like to be 8, 9, 10 and have those family stories of the horrors passed down to you. You can't fathom that. What is it like hearing about what happened to your grandparents, not a general black person, but your family? I'm hoping, and I thank the committee, and I stand with a strong agreement vote, that for some descendants of slaves from the state of Maryland, we are able to give them an ounce of individualized and personal closure for the pain that they experienced through institutionalized and legal segregation here in the state of Maryland. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote. Madam Speaker, thank you so much.
We can't continue to do this.
Okay, I'll be super brief, Madam Speaker. Some of us have Jewish family members, and those stories were told to us as well, just so that everybody knows.
Clerk will take the call. Call the roll. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 587, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Yeah, on Amendment 163226/1, I'd like to be recorded in the green, please. Thank you.
Okay. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 956, Health Insurance, Medicare Supplement Policies, Insurance Producer Commission.
Is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 956, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements, appropriations.
Appropriations will not meet tonight, Madam Speaker.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House Judiciary Committee will not meet tonight, nor will they have a voting session tomorrow in the morning. We will vote in between first and second sessions tomorrow.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will not be meeting between now and the next session.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will not be meeting between now and the next session either.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will not be meeting tonight.
Health and Government Operations.
To the Health and Government Operations Committee, I promise that I will make it up to you. We have to meet after session for one vote, okay? One bill, I think. So thank you for being patient right after session for a vote.
Okay. Are there any subcommittee announcements? Okay. Any delegation announcements? Okay. Any? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Baltimore City House delegation, we will have our picture day tomorrow, either before the floor or after the floor, depending on what we got going on. So thank you.
Okay. Any caucus announcements? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the House Democratic Caucus will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in the Prince George's County Delegation Room. Thank you.
Any other caucus announcements? Seeing none.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Just a reminder, come together tonight, German caucus directly after session at the Old Stein. Thanks so much.
Okay. Any other caucus announcements? Okay. Yeah. If not, quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 137 members present, the House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Thursday, April 3rd at 10 a.m., legislative date March 19th.